So first up, we've got the tier list. So this is any movie that I saw in theaters in the month of March. I rank in a tier list, so we go and look at what tier do they fall in, and then at the end I'm going to kind of organize them per tier, which ones I like the most on the left, going to ones I like the least in the tier on the right. So this is in chronological order that I saw them. So the first movie I saw in March was Creed 3, and this was a great film. I absolutely loved it. I think it's my favorite Creed film, mainly because I don't remember the first one all that well. I think I watched it on a plane several years ago, and then I watched Creed 2 in the month of February. It was fine, but didn't stand out to me. But Creed 3 was just really amazing. I think the story and the characters are really what does it for this film, and I absolutely think it's worth checking out. So that's a solid A in my book. So that goes in the A tier. And then next up we have Operation Fortune. This was a film that is pretty forgettable. I mean, I can give you I could, yeah, tell the main story off the top of my head, but it really wasn't that special of a film. Nothing against it or anyone that made it. I'm sure it was a lot of work, but it didn't stand out to me. It wasn't bad. It was easy enough to sit through, but it was just fine. Then we have What We Do Next. This was a film that I knew nothing about going into, and I was, yeah, pleasantly surprised. I think this is a great film. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes long, or a little over that. So yeah, there's not that many movies that are that short, but this movie crammed a lot into that hour and 20 minutes, and it felt like it just had so much to delve into. I really liked the characters and the story that it had to tell. So this one I thought was a great film. I absolutely loved it as well. Next up, we have The Quiet Girl. This was a film I was surprised I liked as much as I did. It's not much about anything. It's just about a girl who goes to live with her aunt and uncle, basically. It's technically her mom's cousin, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was just very nostalgic for me, and I thought the child actress did a very good job and really sold her character. But just the themes that it goes into, it was just it was mainly very nostalgic for me. I think it brought up or reminded me a lot of things that I experienced as a kid, but things I haven't thought of in years. And I think any movie that can do that is something special. So I thought this was a great film. I think it's maybe on the lower end of great, but I did really like it. Next up, we have Scream 6. This is the second Scream film I've seen. I saw Scream 5 that came out last year, and I really liked Scream 5. The kind of, the Scream formula was completely new to me in that movie, and I think that's what made that one feel very fresh. I think I gave that one an A. This one was still pretty good, but I give it a B. I think some of the things that were nuanced in the fifth one for me were, well, yeah, without that nuance, it was just a good movie. But that, I mean, that's still worth checking out in my opinion. It's just that I didn't think it was great or necessarily a must see or something that I hadn't seen before. That's really what it takes for a movie to get into the A category. So a solid sequel to last year's film if you're looking for something to see. Shazam, this was one that I was really looking forward to. I really liked the first Shazam, but this one was just fine overall. Yeah, there were just elements of the film that didn't really work for me. I felt that Zachary Levi was acting more immature than like the Billy Batson, like Shazam as superhero Shazam is acting kind of more immature than his kid counterpart. And so that really took me out of the movie. I felt like this doesn't seem like a 17-year-old. They seem more like a 14-year-old than the character that we had in the first film, and that this character hasn't matured in the 3 years since we've seen him. That really just took me out of it. And I think that's a huge part of why I didn't really care for the film. But then outside of that, there's just, I don't know, nothing really in this film that impressed me. I think, yeah, it was just so-so. I think it's a good family film, good enough anyway, but it's a C in my book. It's not one that I'd recommend, but also don't, like, I wouldn't say stay away from this film. Like I would say for the next film, getting into Inside. I don't give out D's very often, but this film was very boring to sit through. I found it just kind of weird and depressing, and a lot of it didn't make any sense. logically for the stuff that happens in the movie. So I felt like there was just a lot of kind of plot holes that way, and yeah, when it's boring on top of that, I was surprised to give this film a D. I was looking forward to it. I was excited to see Willem Dafoe, but I honestly would recommend not seeing that film just based off of my experience with it. Then we have A Good Person. This is a film I was really looking forward to when I had seen some of the previews for it. I like Morgan Freeman. I really like Florence Pugh. I haven't seen a ton of her stuff, but I liked her a lot in Don't Worry Darling and also in Black Widow. And she's really good in this film. I think she's definitely one of the best actresses of kind of her generation, and I'm excited to see kind of where her career goes. But this was a great film. I think it all comes down to the characters and the story. While it did feel maybe a little similar to Four Good Days, so it wasn't like the most completely new thing, it was still really fresh and wasn't quite as depressing as Four Good Days. So this film, though, I absolutely loved. I think it's a great film and recommend seeing it. And then lastly, we have John Wick 4. This is one that I was really excited for. I love the John Wick franchise. You can see them right behind me on the wall, actually, if I move out of the way a little bit. We got John Wick 2 and 3, but anyway, and then one is slightly off camera there. But this is, one of my favorite franchises of all time. It's, I think, one of the most consistent franchises as well. But John Wick 4 was, I think, very good, and I think the second half of the film is some of the best John Wick. But for me, the first half of the film felt just kind of bloated and unnecessary for some of the stuff that we saw. I feel like John Wick wasn't in as much of that part of the film. And so the first half it wasn't bad, but it was, I think, maybe a little subpar for John Wick. Even though I kind of liked seeing the expanded world and like expanding outside of New York City, that is what kind of brought the film down a little bit in my book. So this was a B. It's still a good movie and one that I recommend, but because of the first half, its shortcoming, I couldn't quite put this in the great category. If it had if they had trimmed that down, because it's almost a 3-hour movie, if they had trimmed down the first half, I think that would have helped if they had made it a tighter film and then made the second half maybe more of like the second 2/3 if you kind of cut the first half down. So it's just shorter. I think that might have worked, but hey, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe it would have been worse. And I know a lot of people really like this, but for me, it was, I think, my least favorite John Wick, even though it does have a really good second half. So going through these though, that's my tier ranking for the month of March. And if we're gonna put these in order of how much I liked them, starting off with the bad tier, there's only one, so we don't have to reorder that. Between Operation Fortune and Shazam, I give the edge to Operation Fortune. I liked that better than Shazam. Between Scream 6 and John Wick 4, I definitely liked John Wick 4 better, but both are really good. I think both are solidly B, and John Wick 4 is maybe on the upper end of B. And then for great tier, this one's kind of hard because all these films are fairly different and it's kind of hard to compare them. But I'd probably go with Creed 3. I think is the best of these four. And then I think The Quiet Girl is probably my least favorite. And then I'm trying to decide between A Good Person and What We Do Next. I think we'll go with this. Yeah, I think A Good Person was really good, but What We Do Next was just really unique. I liked that it was set up and is like in the title card it says a film in 7 scenes, and it's, you know, that you only get 7 scenes, and it makes each of those scenes so important, I think. But those two are really close. But I think that's a pretty good. That's my ranking, I think, for March. So if you're kind of on the fence or looking for what to see most, this is them in order for the month of March. But yeah, that does it. If you saw any movies in the month of March and want to share your own tier list, I'd love to hear it down below. Or if you just want to shout out your favorite movie from the last month, mine was Creed 3. I think that's, an absolutely great film. I think it deserves to have the best box office opening weekend of a sports film and to be the highest grossing in that trilogy so far. I think it deserves all of that. Same thing with John Wick 4. They upped the budget for that thing. That's why it's such a massive film and it's like extended out the entire or across the globe. And I think that really paid off. That's having so much success at the box office, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see that. On the flip side, Shazam has been a flop this last month, and I personally see why, because I didn't really like the film. I am still kind of confused why it's at 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like surprised to see that, over 50% slightly over 50% last time I checked, of critics thought it was fresh. For me, it really wasn't. So it wasn't surprising to me to see it flop as hard as it did. It's unfortunate for the character and which I love from the first film, but I get it based off of the quality of this film. So yeah, that does it for my tier list. And again, comment below if you want to share your favorite movie of the month.